Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Wisco Whiskey Review. My name's Jeff, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Spirits of the Apocalypse, The Walking Dead Bourbon. Now, this is a combination between Diageo, a really big liquor corporation, conglomerate. They own tons of different spirits brands, and they teamed up with Skybound Entertainment, which is the company that owns the Walking Dead comic book series. So this is kind of their bottle. I don't want to call it like a marketing scheme or gimmick because this is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. So, you know, this is legitimate and everything. It's 47% ABV or 94 proof. The distillery is undisclosed, but it's believed to be Bullet since Bullet is owned by Diageo. So it would make sense, you know, instead of sourcing from a different distillery and having to pay them royalties and all of that for that they just bottle it distill it from their own distillery. That would make more sense. So that's what people believe. So, you know, you could take this and maybe side by side with some Bullet regular bourbon and see if there's much of a difference. I don't have Bullet, the regular bourbon with me right now or on me, so I can't do that. But before this bottle's gone, that's something I want to do, just to compare the two of them. So I think that's all of the specs that I have in this bottle. Again, there's really not a whole lot of information on it other than Diageo 47%. And this is a straight Kentucky bourbon, so that means it's at least 2 years. And since there isn't a age statement on the bottle, then that means it has to be at least 4 years, because if it's straight bourbon whiskey under 4 years, they have to put the age statement on the bottle by law. So as long as they're following the law, we can assume it's at least 4 years old. I can't imagine it's much older than that because that takes money to age whiskey, and it's just easier to roll out some younger whiskey if you can. So I think that's about it. I mean, I like the design of the bottle. You know, I think it's really cool what they're doing. Again, there's really not much of a story. It's kind of just like a fun, I don't want to use the word gimmicky because that has a negative connotation, but it's just a fun kind of different bottle. So as you can tell, this is about halfway gone. I do remember being pleasantly surprised by this one. You know, I didn't really have any expectations going into it. I really didn't do any research on it. I'd seen it on the shelves. I was up north on vacation here in Wisconsin. I saw it and I just pulled the trigger on it. I said, you know, what the heck, let's try it. So, yeah, I'll do another kind of a recap here and we'll do a pour. So we'll check out the color, and then I'll grade the nose, the palate, the finish, and the value. And I don't judge the color because not with bourbon, but with other whiskeys, you can add coloring and things like that. So, you know, color isn't really, it's not a make or break thing for me, right? It's just kind of one of the qualities that, you know, isn't really going to affect the flavor of the whiskey. So going on the color here, again, with this being roughly about 4 years old, I'd say the color matches that. You know, it's kind of a lighter color, lighter copper, light amber, things like that. So you can tell it's not a 12, 15-year-old bourbon, right? It's not super dark, but it does have some color to it. So it's been sitting in wood for a little bit. All right, let's go in for the nose, everyone. All right, so the first thing I'm noticing is that there is just a little bit of kind of an ethanol burn, or like just a little bit of a bitter ethanol hit coming at you on the nose. And then after that, it kind of rounds out into a nice, like, fruity sweetness. Now this is gonna sound strange, but on the nose, I almost pick up like, it reminds me of like walking through a grocery store produce section. That's probably like the most off or like specific description I've ever given for a nose, but that's what this reminds me of. Like you're walking through a grocery store produce department and you're smelling all of the fresh produce, the vegetables a little bit, but mostly just, you know, if you're walking by the fruit, This is kind of what this is smelling like to me. And there's a little bit of, you know, caramel, vanilla, your typical bourbon notes like that, but it's more of like just a ripe fruit scent that I'm getting. It's definitely not bad by any means. Yeah, in its defense, that is a unique nose from, you know, from everything that I've experienced. I like the nose from what I'm getting. Let's go in for the first taste here. Cheers, guys. I'm going for one more sip here. Sometimes the first sip you can't really trust super well because you're kind of letting your palate warm up and get used to both the alcohol, but just also the flavors that are coming in. So I like to give myself at least 2 or 3 sips before I start, you know, picking out flavors or really trying to nail stuff down. So this on the palate actually has a lot more going on with it than I would have expected just off of the nose. Some whiskeys, you know, what you get on the nose and the palate, they're almost identical. You know, it really lets you know what's going on and they really mesh well. This one, I'm getting a lot more different things on the palate than I did on the nose. So I wasn't really expecting kind of the spice that came in, like a big black pepper note, which a lot of times I normally can't find in bourbons. This one's I'm picking up on. The fruit is definitely there, you know, the vanilla, caramel, but that baking spice really comes forward on the palate, and it didn't really show up on the nose that much. I was getting more of the fruit, the caramel, the sweetness, and things like that. So I don't know, that's a pretty good palate. Again, for something going into this without any expectations, you know, I'm pleasantly surprised with this one again. I remember me not disliking this when I first had it, and you know, hopefully with getting some air in there, it's bringing out some of the sweetness, kind of just smoothing out some of those like rough around the edge kind of notes that you might have get just from a fresh crack. All right, so now we'll talk about the finish, which those are the flavors and the length of kind of what you're tasting once you've drunk it and everything's done, and it's the flavors that linger at the very tail end of everything. So I'll take another sip here and kind of see what sticks around. So I'm not sure if I like the finish so much or not. I'd say it's a short to medium finish. It's not really hanging around all that long. And I'm just getting some weird funk on the back end. I'd say it's mostly a sweet finish. That spice is kind of just mainly right in the middle. And then it kind of dies out and goes into some more sweetness. It's almost like a bubble gum, but not necessarily in a good way. There's just a little bit of like kind of metallic-y, astringent thing going on the finish. And I'm not really sure what causes that, but it could be a little bit to do with the youth on this one, with it being only 4 years old. I'm gonna try one more sip here. Yeah, so the second time I'm looking for the finish here, it's almost like there's that spike of the baking spice that kind of comes in, like the clove and the cinnamon, nutmeg, and then that kind of dies down, and then I'm left with this like kind of metallic, almost medicinal cherry kind of note going on, which is, it's kind of like, you know, the beginning with the ripe red fruits and things like that, but it's just a little bit too kind of metallic and a little bit too different of a taste. It doesn't taste like a sweet, ripe red cherry. It's almost like a cherry cough syrup kind of a thing, which I'm not really digging. But like I said, that mid palate, or kind of, you know, right when you take a sip, between that and the middle, that I really enjoy. It's just kind of the tail end I'm not really digging, which is different for me. Usually, you know, I like everything all the way through, you know, with a whiskey. I don't find too many that kind of change directions, but this one is kind of like that. So now I'm gonna grade the nose, the palate, and the finish. Here we go. I know it shouldn't be, but I think the nose is probably the most pleasant thing about this one. It just smells great to me. You know, it's just really sweet. I tend to prefer a sweeter whiskey. But this one, again, to me, it just smells like really ripe red fruits. Kind of walking through that, you know, produce at a grocery store, just that freshness. I'm gonna give the nose on this a 7.5. I really enjoy this one. So now we'll go into the palate. I'll grade that. I'll take another sip. So kind of like I said before, I enjoy the palate on this one. I just feel like it's still lacking just a little bit of flavor maybe. I don't know if it has to do with the proof, with it being, you know, only 47% ABV. I feel like if it was maybe just a little bit higher than that, some of those other flavors might come through a little bit stronger. But I mean, for what it's doing, I like the flavor on this one quite a bit. So I'm gonna give this one a solid 7 on the palate, actually. It's pretty good for what I was expecting, which wasn't anything, but maybe that's part of it, you know, expectation versus reality. That can kind of skew your perception of things, but I enjoy drinking this one, so a 7 it is. Now we're gonna grade the finish, and I'll take one more sip. I kind of already know, I think, where I'm about gonna place this, but just, again, one more time, just to give it a fair shake here. Yeah, there's just something about this finish that I'm not crazy about. I think it's that kind of cherry cough syrup, that medicinal, a little bit of metallic, kind of tannic thing going on here that I'm just not that much of a fan of. And it's also a very short finish too. It doesn't really linger. There's not a whole lot going on. I would imagine this one is probably chill filtered, just between the price and it, you know, not being a big name brand or anything. So the mouthfeel isn't fantastic either. So that doesn't help with the finish as far as I'm concerned. So I'm gonna give the finish maybe a 3.5 out of this one. It's probably one of the lower ones lowest scores I've given a finish, but it's just not impressing me at all. All right, last but not least, we'll talk about the value here. So I believe I overpaid for this bottle. Like I said, I was on vacation and I saw it on the shelf and I just took a stab at it, but I know it's come down in price, and I don't know if that's because it's been sitting on shelves for a little bit longer, so the price is coming down, but I've seen this anywhere from like 20 to 25 now. I think the MSRP is only $15.99. So, you know, with a little bit of markup, 20 bucks is probably what you should expect to see it. Maybe 25. I think I paid somewhere between 30 and 35 for this. So value, again, is subjective, as is taste and, you know, the nose and everything essentially. So for my own thoughts on this, the value, if you pay 15 bucks for this, I think this is a good value. At 20 bucks, I say that's still really fair. I would pay 20 bucks for this bottle all day. You know, I think it drinks just fine. It's got a little bit of proof there. Like I said, it smells great. The finish is really kind of the only thing that's really lacking for me on this one. But, you know, as long as you don't care that it's not from a disclosed really big distillery, you know, as long as you're not super fan loyal to any specific distillery, you're looking to try something new, I'd say if you can still find this, and as of filming right now, this is early November of 2020. So, you know, if you can still find this out there and you're, because this is a limited time release. So I guess I should maybe factor that into the value as well. But, you know, at 15 to 20, I'd say this is a fantastic bottle to try. I'd say it's got value. Again, I wish the distillery was disclosed. That's kind of my only beef with, you know, the kind of the value portion of this. Or if you just like The Walking Dead show and you want to drink something while you watch it, you know, this is kind of fitting. So the value is kind of in the middle for me. I'd say it's definitely above average. I'm gonna give the value a 6 on this because, you know, they're not trying to really make a ton of money, you know, by upselling something that's like really poor quality and just slapping a label on it and calling it good, right? They're taking something that's at least decent quality and they're just kind of marrying it with a TV show. So, You know, some of it's marketing and all of that, but honestly, even without the marketing, I think this is pretty good bourbon. So we'll call the value a good 6.5 for the rating out of 10. All right, so if my math is correct here, that brings the average rating on this one to a 6.1 out of 10, which I think is, you know, it's pretty fair for this one. Again, if you're only paying 15 to 20 bucks on this one and you see it, I'd say, you know, take a stab at it. It's not really gonna break the bank, and I think it's a good sippable bourbon. Is it the best thing I've had? No, not by a long shot, but you know, just for something that you're gonna sip every once in a while, or just try, or you know, to share with friends or something like that, I'd say for the price, this is pretty good. So that's my take on it. I'm probably gonna, you know, finish this off here within the next few weeks or so. I can make some more room on the old bar cart, but you know, this is a pretty good one. I don't know if I'm gonna buy another bottle of it, but I don't regret buying this bottle, even though, you know, I paid quite a bit more than what I probably should have for it. But anyways, that's gonna be it, guys. Again, I've got a Instagram and I've got a Patreon set up too. I appreciate you guys watching. Any support, you know, that you guys throw my way just by watching, commenting, anything like that is great. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and keep on sipping. Thanks.